Hey folks, dash cams are incredibly important devices to have in your car because they can save you weeks of going back and forth with insurance because of clashing stories. And this is especially important in more serious accidents where more money and potentially injuries are at stake in that case. Dash cams should become standard as included with new cars as they're made with integrated dash cam systems, but in the meantime, dash cams are still important to have in your car as an aftermarket addition, even though it's some added headache. Here are some examples of incidents that were nearly accidents, all within a week of installing my new dash cam.
So what's happening here is this Golf just totally cuts in on that Chevy Spark there and remains in between two lanes for an extended period of time, not just making a safe lane change. In this next clip, you're going to see this CTSV just completely cut across the freeway, forcing this guy out of his lane, completely oblivious to me and that other driver. And then here you can see this guy's just cutting straight through. Very dangerous maneuver when you can't see. And in this last clip, I'm doing a solid 45 miles per hour with the right of way, and this guy decides to turn left just as I'm coming, forcing me to stomp on the brakes.
So with that said, today I'm going to be taking a look at the Viofo A139. Now this is a dash cam made by what is now an established dash cam company with a very good reputation, Viofo. Now this dash cam specifically is a higher to mid-range option from the company that offers a front camera, a rear camera, and potentially an interior camera if you decide to step it up to the third camera option. Now the rear and the interior cameras are both 1080p and have good night vision sensors with even infrared capability on the interior camera. And the front camera is a 1440p camera with also a good night vision sensor. Now, as far as which of these two options to go for between the 2 and the 3 camera option, I would tend towards the 2 camera option for a couple of reasons. Not only is it a really good value at $220 at the time of recording this, but also I do feel it's slightly inappropriate to be recording the cabin of your car, although could be highly useful in the case of someone who's a delivery driver or perhaps an Uber driver, something like that, where you might actually want to record potential liability issues inside the car. But for other cases, for the normal driver, I would say it feels a little bit inappropriate to have that interior camera, not to mention the added cost of adding that onto the whole package. Also, the front and rear cameras alone are almost always enough to prove circumstantial evidence in the event of an accident. Now, the difficult thing about the rear camera is that it's almost never going to catch the license plate if there's a hit and run incident, and that's a difficult situation to be in. However, I don't think that the interior camera can really help with that situation anyways, so for the typical driver, again, I would recommend just the 2 camera option. Alright, so having done an overview of what this product offers, I'm now going to go into an installation and kind of step you through that process. If you want more detailed information on installing a dash cam, I do actually have another video on hardwiring a dash cam that I will be linking below and you can find on my channel.
So a good first step is to just plug in your dash cam and make sure that everything's working. Mess around a little bit with the app as well, just to make sure that you are accustomed to using it before you actually place it in the car, and that way you make sure everything's working without the stress of having to have it uninstalled after you've put it in. So the next step is if you are actually going to be installing this using hardwiring, which I would highly recommend, then just find a fuse diagram for your car and identify a fuse that will be on all the time if you're planning to have parking mode enabled, or at least on when the accessories are on if you don't plan on using parking mode. Alright, so next main step, whether you're hardwiring or not, is to clean very thoroughly the inside of the windshield where you're going to end up placing the dash cam. And that's to make sure that the adhesive has the highest possible effect so that it's not coming flying off on you while you're driving or recording. So once you have the area cleaned well, what you're going to want to do is make sure that you can find a good alignment for the dash cam. And this is a moment where it would be good to have someone in the driver's seat with you in the passenger seat or vice versa, just getting feedback on whether or not they can see the dash cam, it's obscuring their vision, and make sure that there's nothing to the right of the dash cam since it slides off of its mount to the right. So it will need a little bit of space there to do that slide motion. So just get it aligned in a good way that doesn't obscure any vision for the driver, which is often going to be behind the rear view mirror. Alright, so once you've found and aligned that optimal location for the dash cam, it's a matter of peeling off that sticker for the 3M tape. And the best way to do this is with the mount actually on the dash cam so that you know you're going to have space to mount the dash cam. You don't want to do it with just the mounting plate. And just press firmly once you have it on there, but not firmly enough to where you may damage the plastic casing of the dash cam. So once you have it on there well enough, what I did is I just slid it off and pushed the mounting hardware as hard as possible with my fingers to make sure that it was very securely on there. Alright, so with that dash cam in place now, go ahead and plug in whichever cord is going to be leading to the dash cam for power. And I actually am plugging in the rear camera cord as well and putting that kind of through here first, since that's going to be probably the more permanent cord that's going through there. And basically just begin routing that wire in an inconspicuous way so that it's not getting in your way or in an ugly view for passengers. Alright, so I ended up routing that charging cable all the way to the hardwire kit with the rest of it at the fuse box, and in every car that's going to be different, so I won't show that procedure, but if you want more details on it, I do have another video on hardwiring a dash cam. But what I'm doing now is beginning to route the cable for the rear camera all the way to the back. And for me, it's worth taking this time to do as good of a job as humanly possible so that I don't have any cables in my way. This is a job that, although a pain to do once, I don't want to have to do twice. So it's worth it to invest that time up front to do it right that first time, and it's going to be peace of mind and something that I don't even have to think about later on. Alright, so with routing to the rear camera, this is where I got a bit creative because I realized that there was going to be a lot of extra slack in that wire, and I didn't want that to be exposed wire in the car. So what I ended up doing is routing this wire not once, not twice, but 3 times around the rear quarter window. And this is just something that I found would work in my car. For every car, it's going to be different how you would approach this situation. But in general, I would recommend this sort of approach where you find a creative way to get rid of and hide that excess wire so that you don't have to be worrying about that. It is a fiber optic to the best of my understanding, so you want to avoid crimping it too much. But and that also means that you're not going to be able to actually just cut off some part of it and then splice it back together. So be wary of that, but definitely try your best to creatively get this routed out of your way so that you can just have as good looking as possible a setup that actually is still doing just as good of a job as far as getting the camera angles as well. Okay, so once you actually have that routed to the rear of the car, the next step is basically to get a sense for what the best camera angle is going to be. And the way to do that is to get that camera up and running, plug it in, and switch that camera to the rear view. And that way you're going to be able to, in the app, be able to tell what camera angle is going to be recorded at, different mounting locations. And that way you're going to get the best sense of what the best possible camera angle will be. And as you can see here, I'm kind of just tweaking around with different locations and trying to find the best place that's not only mountable, but also not obscuring vision and still getting a decent camera angle for at least some circumstantial evidence in the case of an accident. Alright, so now that you've got everything wired, you've got an idea of what the best possible camera location and mounting position is for that rear camera, it's really just a matter of actually placing that rear camera. And the process for doing so is very similar to placing the front camera. It's really just a matter of wiping down, cleaning very thoroughly the surface on which you're going to mount it, taking off that adhesive strip for the 3M mounting portion of the dash cam, and then just placing it and doing so firmly, pushing down hard on the mounting portion of the camera, making sure that it's solidly in place, testing out that that's the case, taking off that cover and plugging it in. And from that point, you're really set to go. The procedure for the front camera that faces the interior is basically exactly the same. The only thing to consider is the varied location for making sure you're getting what you want to of the interior, but also making sure that you actually find a way to get rid of that cabling, which can be sometimes quite difficult. So overall, if you get the 3 camera option, it's really a slight more amount of work than the 2 camera option. So in that sense, it is a pretty easy step up.
Alright, so now that I've done a product overview and kind of shown the installation process, I want to talk to what I actually think about this dash cam. So as far as the design is concerned, I really like the design overall of this dash cam. One thing people might not be used to or might not like is that it doesn't have a screen. However, I think a screen on a dash cam is unnecessary added cost that doesn't really help you that much. As long as you know where to feel around for and press that incident button, then you're really fine. That's all you need to be able to do. Now, as far as the mounting hardware, it's really rigid. Once it's in place with the 3M tape, it's very solid, it's not moving around. And I also like the convenience of the mounting hardware for sliding the dashcam off to the right. They clearly designed the cords placement and the sliding direction, which is to the right, for placing the dashcam in the optimal place behind the rear view mirror. So that is all really well designed, really well thought out, and I like all of the above. Now, another thing I like about the design is that the cameras all pivot quite a bit. So you'll be able to find that good camera angle wherever you end up mounting these cameras, and you can play around with it until it's just right. Something I don't quite like about this camera as much, and actually I've found to be quite a big difficulty, is getting the micro SD card out. It's a small thing, but it's really hard. You've got to have some serious fingernails to be able to get it in and out, and that's just kind of a design flaw, to be frank. It's put in a little bit too far to make it almost inaccessible. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the app that is used in conjunction with this dashcam. It's very poorly rated on the Apple App Store, at least, and it's probably likely the case on the Android App Store as well. However, the thing about this app, coming from a software engineer's perspective, is I think it's actually really well built. And the reason I think it gets poorly rated is because it doesn't look the nicest. However, everything on the app functions completely as you expect it to. You can look at the camera angles that you have through the app. You can change all the settings for the dashcam, and all of that works as it should. So I really don't have any complaints with the app. Despite it not being the prettiest thing in the world, it works well, so I can't really complain. Now, the last thing I want to speak to a little bit in regards to this dashcam is probably one of the most important things, which is just the camera and the camera quality. So there's, like I said, a 1440p sensor on the front and 1080p sensors on the rear and interior if you choose to get one. And the thing about these sensors is that they are going to be okay for most all lighting conditions, and they'll pick up everything for what I will call circumstantial evidence, just gaining video evidence of what happened so that there's no way to argue what actually occurred. Now, the thing that these cameras are not going to be helpful for is, for the most part, grabbing license plates. Unless that car was close to the car in front of you and at some point stationary, you're probably not going to be able to get a license plate, and that's something that a 4K dash cam would probably be able to do at least a little bit better. So if you're hoping to be able to get the best possible chance of getting a license plate in a hit and run situation, you're going to need to step it up to a 4K dash cam, because the resolution is what matters in those incidents. But for everything else with circumstantial evidence, you're going to be able to get what you need with this dash cam. So the main challenges with installing this dash cam are placing the rear camera to avoid blocking any rear visibility, which you kind of have to be creative with. And another large challenge is routing the wire to the rear camera. Because it's got a wired connection, you have to find a way to get that wire to the back of the car, and that can be difficult. You have to be a little bit creative with that process. Another note about installing a dash cam is that it can be kind of a nuisance to hardwire your dash cam to the fuse box. However, it's a nuisance that's very much worth it, because you'll find that it's actually very bothersome to have cables running around the cabin that are visible, and it's also quite bothersome to have a cigarette lighter constantly in use by the charger for the dash cam. So it's worth taking the time to hardwire the dash cam despite the difficulty, the added challenge to the installation process. So with all of that said, this is, I think, a really affordable option considering what you get. It's definitely the case that Viofo pays great attention to the value of their products, and at the same time making sure that their designs are going to actually last. And I think that combination, that middle ground, is a good place to be. So I would very comfortably recommend this to anyone who wants a dash cam that gets the rear camera angle, potentially the interior, and gets you kind of all the circumstantial evidence you'd ever need. So as a whole, I would definitely recommend this product. Again, if you need that interior camera angle for liability reasons, driver, for other people or whatnot, then get that. But for most drivers, get that really good value of just the front and rear with $220 again at the time of filming. And hopefully you can get any circumstantial evidence you'd ever need in the case of an accident, and save yourself that headache if that were to ever happen. So with that said, I'm very happy to have this dash cam installed on my car. I definitely feel more secure driving around, having that rear camera angle especially. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to see more content on products and software and tech in the future, then please consider subscribing to my channel. I will be doing a giveaway at 1,000 subscribers, and thank you so much for watching.